I definitely wasn't expecting this video or this rifle to go this way, and by that I mean the lead and steel AR15 right here, or the all-rounder carbine as its name actually stands for, because this thing comes as a package for what I think might be the best package value out there in the market I have seen in quite some time. And there's a lot to go over here because, like I said, this thing comes as a package exactly like you see it here: rifle, colors, backup sights, and the optic for $1,699. Now I know that might sound like a lot to some people, but let's take this into account throughout the video. That is for everything that you currently see on this setup. We do have to clear something up front, because anytime you say value or budget or package, that's kind of a subjective term that is all over the place, right? Because like I said, this thing is $1,699 for how you see it right here. And I know there's a lot of people out there saying, well, my $500 rifle or my $300 build or this or that, it's just as good, or something like that. So maybe, right? It all depends on how it was built, what it was built with, because I know there's a lot of people with those $500 to $700 builds out there that are held together with hopes and dreams. And if you run 500 rounds a year through a rifle, it's probably going to do just fine. But I have been known to run several thousand rounds a day through rifles, and there are differences in parts and springs and detents and gas rings and all those things that if you were using really cheap bottom of the barrel ones, they're gonna fail on days like that. Trust me, I've seen a lot of those budget builds or budget kits or budget rifles, and I've seen a lot of them fail. And like I said, we all know somebody who has said stuff like that before, and if you have, definitely let me know in the comment the best, just as good story that you currently have. But the real question is, for the money, is the AR15 from Lead and Steel and the optic and sight package and everything here actually worth it? Is it a value to you? So let's start with the butt stock and work our way to the business end up here. Starting off with a SOP mod style stock that is from JE Tactical. It's going to do everything you need it to do. It's a stock, it's adjustable, it's polymer, it's got battery compartments in it. It's pretty much going to handle everything you or me are going to do with it out there. You're also going to get a color match buffer tube in there, which is pretty cool. It's properly staked up there on the castle nut, which is always nice to see. You can get an ergonomic thrill grip on there. Again, it's another polymer grip that's a little bit less of an aggressive angle as compared to the A2. It's got good texture. It's got that beaver tail up onto the lower receiver there, which is what I'm a fan of. Overall, going to do everything you need it to do. You're also going to get an extended trigger guard, which is always nice to have, especially if you're in colder weather and use gloves. I just have bigger fingers, and I hate that flat style trigger guard that's standard on mil-spec style rifles. The upper and lower here are 7075 T6 forged aluminum, which is what you want. That's the good stuff. It's going to have a mil-spec styled ambidextrous safety, so the same length on both sides. We'll talk more about that in a minute. You will get a Breek Arms charging handle on this, which is relabeled or branded for Lead and Steel. I think that one's called the Chode, I think it is. There's actually like a gas pathway in there that's built for that. And yes, there are actual charging handles that are meant to disperse gas a different way, because if you think about this thing, as you are shooting this rifle, especially if you are shooting suppressed a lot, that gas is coming back in your face. The lead is coming back in your face. And this thing is going to do its job and disperse the gas out the side. I'll show you the little relief cut in there. But that's a big deal for me, having shot probably like 1 million rounds of ammunition in my life, from law enforcement, the military, and doing this. The less exposure I can have, the better, because you're getting less carcinogens in your face, less lead in your face. So I will take every minute win when it comes to exposure, because I don't want lead poisoning or cancer. You're also going to get their single stage enhanced combat style trigger in there, which I will say, for a mil-spec-ish style trigger, that's actually not bad in there. And I am not a fan of mil-spec triggers at all. I much prefer things like the Blackout Defense Zero Reset trigger, but for a mil-spec-ish design, it's pretty good. You get a standard brass deflector and forward assist on the upper receiver, which I know a lot of you out there are big fans of having. The rail is made of 7075 aluminum as well, which is definitely nicer than some that kick it down for the rail to 6061. You get steel inserts for the anti-rotation QD setups in there, which is awesome, because now you don't have to buy an additional QD insert to run your sling from. And trust me, you don't want to run your sling directly to an aluminum rail with a steel QD insert, because if you run that rifle a lot and hard, that steel is going to eat the aluminum up and you're gonna basically not have a UD point after a while. So having a steel inserted one on a rail is a definite positive. Even Geisley has gone to that on most, if not all, of their rails now with a steel insert for the QD mount for your sling. The barrel on this thing is gonna be 14.5 inches, pin and welded out front to make it legal, but this is a very different design on the barrel here, and it's actually pretty cool because it has a monolithic gas block design, meaning the gas block is actually integral and milled out of the barrel itself, which is pretty cool. And I will say that this thing is gassed right. A lot of companies out there will overport their barrels to make them run even when they're out of spec or they're hanging up on the inside, the bolt carrier, to make them run on junk ammo because they're just not made that great. Well, that causes damage to your rifle. You want the thing gassed appropriately so it doesn't wear out your gas rings or break your bolt or tear your lugs up. All of those things matter. So just because something's running doesn't mean it's right, especially if they've drilled that gas port out with an oil rig bit just to make the rifle run. As for the barrel itself, it will be 4150 chrome moly vanadium, chrome line in the barrel, so it's going to give you extreme life and durability here out of that barrel. And according to Lead and Steel, this barrel is MOA or sub-MOA capable with an end user and like 77 grain Black Hills ammunition. I'm gonna test that in another video, but for this one, I wanted to run it just the way it came right out of the box like that, exactly how it was set up. So trying to print a sub-MOA 0 with a red dot is not within my skills and abilities. I don't know anybody that it is without magnification, but if you're that animal, I guess let us all know in the comments and post a video so we can all watch your wonders. And out on the end, the pin and welded muzzle device is going to be a dead air Xeno mount, but there are other options available on the website for chemo, options from forward control designs and others depending on what you want. Getting up in those guts, you will get your option of a DLC or titanium nitrided bolt. Obviously the titanium nitride is going to be a little bit more expensive, but the carrier will be made of 8620 and the bolt itself is going to be Carpenter 158, which is high pressure and magnetic particle inspected, and that's really about the best you can ask for when it comes to a bolt and carrier group. And then the rest of the parts and pins and springs and detents and all that stuff are going to be your traditional mil spec design. Now, before we get into how this thing ran, did I have any issues, I want you guys to check out 1620 Workwear. This is not a paid advertisement for them. I'm just a huge fan of their stuff. So I've been wearing a lot of their pants and some of their shirts recently. They make US sourced, US made clothing. It is not Walmart cheap, but if you are a hard working person and you need your clothes to last, they make stuff for you and it's like guaranteed for life, which is pretty cool. They've got everything from hardcore workwear for my mechanics, construction workers, whatever you're doing out there with your hard lifestyle. And they got some awesome like ultra stretch tactical pants. Again, not a paid advertisement. I'll leave a link down below for you. They're just Americans making US made and US sourced materials. And I'm a huge fan of that. And when I find a company that I can really get behind, I want to let you guys know about it. Let's get into those accessories because like I said, this rifle was fully equipped right out of the box. So let's start off with the optics. So that is the LP1, which Lead and Steel started with a few years ago. It's pretty cool red dot. It's got 150,000 hour battery life on it. Comes on a quick detach mount, gives you a lower 1/3 co-witness. Overall, it's a solid setup here. If you really want to see how those things are working out in the world, go check out some Orion Defense. That's a company out there, a training company. They do good stuff. I don't know those guys. They just put out good content. I know they've been testing several of these optics. They really like them and they beat the tar out of them. So there's a ton of other reviews. You can check them out, but overall that optics turned out to be pretty solid. You also get some flip up iron sights on here akin to the polymer Magpul backup iron sights. I think they're made by like DLG or something like that. They're going to do everything you need them to do out there in the market. You know, none of us are, kicking doors down in Fallujah out there on the range, having fun on the weekends. They're going to do what you need the thing to do. Now, what about performance and problems out on the range? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road. So right now I'm sitting almost exactly at 1,000 rounds, maybe a little over, a little under. I just loaded a ton of mags, literally every one I had laying in my office here, and went out there and put this thing to work for a couple of days on the range. So within that 1,000 rounds, I didn't have a single hiccup. The thing ran 100%, whether I was running NATO spec ammo, 5.56, 55 grain PMC, some self-defense ammo from Spear, ran everything and it ran it consistent, especially on the ejection pattern. I let my buddy Jonathan from the Tactical Toolbox channel get a handle on it, and he actually was pretty impressed with this thing for the price.
Not bad. Like you said, the safety's a little long, but it's not a big deal. Feels good.
So with the optic, $16.99.
Yeah, I'd buy it. It's nice enough. If I needed a new gun.
Let's talk a little bit more about that ejection pattern, because depending on what they've done back here with springs and the buffer weight, can have a big difference on what they did up front with that gas port in the barrel, right? Because if you over drill that gas port, you're gonna have to add a lot of weight in the ass to slow that bolt and carrier down before that rifle eats itself alive. So carbine buffer, carbine spring in here. And what I'm looking for is that ejection pattern. So as you're holding this rifle right out here like this, where is that ejecting? Is it ejecting way out front? Is it ejecting out here too soft? Or even this nice kind of zone right out here with a little bit of angle? And there's a clock thing you can look up online that'll show you what's good. But I pay attention to that. And I pay attention to that with different pressures of ammo. So you're running 62 grain, 77 grain, 55 grain. For me personally, I wanna see it run all those ammo types, and I wanna see it stay in that kind of sweet spot. So with your highest pressured ammo, if you're staying right at that like perpendicular 3 o'clock and everything else is a little bit lighter, you're probably gonna be really good to go and have a really soft shooting setup on there, which is definitely cool, especially when it comes to a mid-length gas system that's running a carbine buffer and a carbine spring. So overall, the gassing job on here was just right, because if you overgas it and have to slow it down with heavier stuff in the back end, you're gonna have more wear and tear in your bolt, your gas rings. It's gonna be more violent going on in there, and that's just not what you want. You want it right up front so you don't have to calm it down later. Another thing I noticed is the rifle just felt solid and smooth. There was no weird looseness anywhere. The upper and lower fit tight. And most of all for me, I hate it when you get those really weird noises in the buffer tube from the buffer and the buffer spring, or maybe the bolt slapping around on the buffer tube a little bit because it's not perfectly in spec, because that's just not comforting when your rifle is making funny noises that don't belong there. Don't get me wrong, you're always gonna have some noise in the buffer tube, but when things sound really weird, if you've shot a lot of rifles, that's never a good thing. So that's also something I look for, along with that recoil impulse and the ejection pattern, all of which I will say was solid. This thing ran fast and it ran flat all throughout the heat cycle, didn't have a single issue, and overall the rifle felt good and it felt solid. And that's a huge plus for me, because even though your accuracy is really built into the upper receiver, I just hate it when rifles feel sloppy loose, like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. Like I said, I'm right at 1,000 rounds on this rifle, all of which perform, but I will be doing a follow-up video, not only for the longevity of it, but to test that accuracy claim, because that is very important when a company says MOA or sub MOA. At least for me it is, especially when you got a chrome lined barrel, because chrome lining doesn't always lend itself to having great accuracy. So it ran reliably, it ran good, fast and flat, but were there any other issues, things that I noticed, or things that I would change? Because nobody gets a free pass, and there's always something that I guess could just be that much better. I guess I should actually cover some of my favorite elements too. So starting off with the color pattern here. So this thing looks super slick, right? And that's not everything, but if you want your rifle to look a certain way, do whatever you want. Who cares? And don't say that you guys that just spray paint your rifles a camo pattern don't want it to look a certain way. Otherwise, you wouldn't spray paint it a certain pattern. So if you like the looks of your rifle, who cares? Do what you want with it, it's yours. The second thing is how the thing ran, just fast and flat. It's always good, always a positive when that happens. The next big thing for me that I liked about this thing was just the overall package for the price. Everything you see right here for $16.99, I think is just solid, especially for the market and the inflation and everything that's going on right now. That's not a bad price at all. But, and I know there's always a but, there are a couple of things on here that I think at the price point this rifle should have. The first one for me, I want a QD end plate right here on the back, right? Because I default to a single point sling a lot of times, if not most times out there, especially on my work setups. And I want that single point sling right there. I don't want to use the one back here on the stock. And I know people are already in the comments, there's one on the back of the stock. Okay, when I'm standing up, I don't want this rifle hanging around my waist. I want it to be about right here on my chest line. And if I've got my QD point right there, that's gonna work better for me personally. That is somewhat personal and subjective, but trust me, you don't want this thing hanging around your waistline doing all this, especially if you're running a suppressor. You at least want it somewhere up in the chest line. That is if you run single point slings. If not, you can run a 2-pointer and do it however you want. That's one thing I think for the money it should come with. The second thing I'm gonna hit this thing on is that ambidextrous safety, right? So that is the mil-spec style length on both sides. And if you got hands like mine, that's what happens every single time. You hit your off hand on it like that, so you have to break your grip, flip it off, then work it, go back. Just not a fan of that. You can take it off, it's just a single screw, but if you're gonna put an ambi safety on a rifle, at least give the shorter option so people can configure it as they need, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, because this getting stuck every single time on my hand, as compared to every other rifle I own where I've got like a Radiant or a Stubby, it throws me for a loop. I may be the only guy, but I know I'm not the only guy, because I know some of you in the comments are gonna be like, I hate that too. It's just one of those things. And I think for the price point, you could throw in a little bit of a better ambi. I know that may be nitpicking to some of you, but that's just how it is. Nobody gets a free pass. There's also something else we should clear up, right? I have a test group of 1. So this is the one that I have. It was sent in for the channel. It could have been cherry picked. I don't know. I didn't buy it from a store. I didn't go select it myself. They sent the thing in. That's very, very common on YouTube. At a certain size of channel, you'll get things to test. Sometimes you send them back. Sometimes they let you keep them. Sometimes they let you buy them at a reduced cost. But I've got a test group of 1. So watch other videos, check other people's information out on them or their opinions, what they liked, what they didn't like, if they had problems, and kind of coagulate that all together. Another thing that probably needs to be cleared up is, no, I didn't get paid to review this rifle or say nice things about it or anything like that. It came in and whatever happens, happens. In fact, I spent my own money on the ammo and my own time and travel and gas and all that stuff. There's zero financial incentive. They didn't pay me. No marketing company paid me. I paid for my own ammo and all that good stuff. And there's not even a chance for me to make money on this review. Maybe like YouTube ad revenue or something, which will probably barely cover the ammo. But that seems to be coming up more and more in the comments down below, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But you know, I've had good experiences and bad experiences with all kinds of different brands. It just is what it is at this point. So after saying all that, I guess all there is to say is, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I'll see you all in the next one.